Hello and welcome to the lecture on typo squatting. So it's an interesting variation of a social engineering attack which basically exploits the fact that people make mistakes when they type URLs. Now this type of attack is become very popular during recent years. It's very difficult to detect this kind of attacks, and moreover it's also a bit difficult to evade these type of attacks. Now let's see what is typo squatting is and how you can protect yourself as well as your organization. Now typo squatting basically exploits common typo mistakes which people make when they type URLs. Now as humans sometimes we make mistakes when we type a website name or a domain name, and what actually happens is that there are some malicious people out there who have actually gone ahead and bought those domains and hosted malicious websites on those URLs, which are just small variations of the actual URL. And those sites actually have malware. They can install malware on your systems, or they can even try to trick you and get information out of you. So for instance, if you look at amazon.com, right, you may have missed an A here, and instead of amazon.com, so you'll end up at amzon.com. Another variation could be if you miss E in LinkedIn. Similarly, you could also type an extra O. Now, usually, with these tech giants like Amazon, LinkedIn, and Facebook, what they usually do is that, they try to buy a lot of the basic variations of their names. So, for example, it's very likely that amzon.com may have been bought by amazon.com. And if a user accidentally, visits this, it simply redirects, the user to the correct website. However, it's obviously not possible to imagine, all of the combinations that you can do. For example, someone may type A here, amazan.com. Someone may, omit another letter. So there are just so many combinations. Despite having deep pockets, even these companies, they cannot buy all of the, possible mistakes. Now, the thing is that, when these malicious actors, they host these malicious domains or websites on a simple variation of the actual name, they make that website look very similar to the actual deal. So, for example, if this was a malicious website and if you visit it, it's very likely that it would have similar logos to Amazon. It may even ask you to log into your account and then capture your credentials. So this is how it works. And despite having a lot of resources, it's actually pretty difficult to get rid of this stuff. Now, there are certain things, which can make typo squatting easy or difficult, right? So let's look at those. So the first thing is that, if you have difficult domain names, then it obviously opens up opportunities for exploitation, because as humans, for us, it's a bit difficult to remember long names. So if you have a website name like shopserendipity.com, what is the likelihood that, everyone is going to type it correctly? So there's a good chance that, a lot of people are going to make mistakes. And that's why it's usually not recommended to have complex domain names, because it's just asking for trouble. Another example could be reconnaissance.com. Now, reconnaissance is a French word which basically stands for doing a sort of spying and gathering information about a certain place or area while being safe. Now, obviously, these kind of domains are really difficult to type, and how many of us would miss an N here or an S here, or there are just so many ways this could go wrong. So it's a good idea to avoid complex domain names, and generally websites which have very complex names are generally not considered as a good practice. Another variation could be if your domain has hyphens in it, right? So hyphen is the only thing that is allowed, it's the only special character which you can use in domains, generally speaking. So if you have good-education.com, someone may type goodeducation.com or bitcoin-discussion-forum. So someone may, skip this hyphen, or they may type bitcoin discussion-forum, or they may skip this hyphen, they may type bitcoin-discussionforum.com. So you see the pattern, right? So if you have a complex domain name or a domain name with hyphens, you're basically asking for trouble, because a lot of your end users are going to end up on, domains which are not the real deal. Also, sometimes this technique is actually used by malicious actors. So, for example, there may very well be a legitimate website, goodeducation.com, but attackers, they may buy a different domain and they just put this hyphen in between. And at first look, this looks to be the correct URL, good-education.com. So these type of things should generally be avoided, and we should be careful, especially if we are going to typing up a complex domain name or a domain with hyphens. Now, a very interesting domain which has existed for quite a while now is Goggle.com. Obviously, they're banking on the fact that Google, one of the most popular search engines on planet, and there are literally millions of people typing google.com into their browsers every second, right? Now, obviously, even if a tiny percentage of those people, they make a mistake and they type goggle.com, so basically they would land on this malicious website which has been there for quite a few years. Now, initially, this was a malicious domain which injected viruses and malware. And one of their ways of attacking was that basically you had pop-ups which exploited a vulnerability. And it claimed that your system has viruses, and if you install this antivirus software, Spy Sheriff, then it would get rid of all of the problems. Obviously, it was a bait, and basically Spy Sheriff was actually a malware which would exfiltrate a lot of information out of user system to a remote server, and it was actually pretty bad. More recently, they've sort of changed their modus operandi. Instead of trying to install Spy Sheriff, what they now do is that they try to leverage social engineering techniques, and they show that it's sort of a US presidential survey website. So they would ask you for your name, postal address, email address, and then obviously your opinion, for example, who's going to win the next presidential election, and so on. And then obviously they misuse that information which people provide. But Google, one of the biggest tech giants in the world, even they could probably not stop this. And the reason is very simple actually, because domain registration, once someone has registered a domain, it's very difficult to get it from them. And a lot of people around the world, what they do is that they buy these small variations, possible mistakes of website names, and then they get them registered. And then either they misuse it or they ask the actual company to pay a lot of money for that domain. And even if they don't want to sell, actually no one can force them. If they keep on renewing it, well, they can still use it. And this has been there for quite a while now. Another very interesting attack, which actually has affected quite a few people around the world, is the HP printer scam. And the way this works is this. So one fine day, someone goes and buys an HP printer, and when they come back and they try to set it up and install it, they open the user manual, and the user manual says that you need to visit this URL to download the drivers, right? Now, it's not a simple URL, it's slightly complex, and there's a good chance that people make mistakes. And there are known websites with variations of this URL which are malicious and which are set up to look just like official HP printers, HP's website. They even have printers and other stuff on it. And the way this scam works is that, so that user, when they think that it's the official, they have actually typed the correct URL and they are on the official HP website. There is actually so when the users visit this website, what happens is that there is a pop-up and there's a so-called tech person from HP, and they say that, okay, we're going to help you set up your computer. And then either, they sometimes ask for remote access to, people's systems, and there are softwares which allow that. And they say that there is a problem setting up the printer on your computer because there's a virus in your computer, so the printer cannot be set up. However, they are very nice, between inverted commas, and they say that they'll repair and remove the virus and set up the printer and fix everything for maybe $99 or $199. And there are quite a few people who fall for this scam because, in their minds, they are actually talking to an HP representative, right? And to be honest, Sometimes the end users cannot be blamed because, to be honest, this is not a simple URL 123.hp.com/nv4510. There is a possibility of people making mistakes, and there is a well-known website which actually exploits this fact. Let's have a discussion on what you can do in order to protect yourself. Now, the first tip is obviously to be very careful when you're typing URLs. For example, you're looking at a URL on some printed piece of paper and then trying to type it, as opposed to copying it from some online source and just pasting it. Another important indication is that usually typo squatting websites have ads and pop-ups. Now, official websites also have ads, but they're sort of like blended in with the background, not like on in your face sort of ads, but usually these malicious web domains or websites, they have a lot of ads, and they have pop-ups with tech people trying to sort of help you. So that's also an indication something may be wrong. Another a telltale sign is that either the website or the so-called tech staff would try to get personal information from you, maybe your social security number or your postal address, your name or phone number or anything. And at some point in time, they would want some sort of payment for some service that they provide. This is also another telltale sign. Another thing which you can do look out for is that a lot of these typo squatting websites do not have certificates installed on them, so they do not use HTTPS. So for example, you won't be seeing this sort of this S after HTTP, and you won't be seeing this lock icon. So if you visit a website which doesn't show this, and usually your browser is going to show a warning somewhere here, then that's a good indication that it may be a bad website or an unsafe website. Finally, the best tip is that if you are in doubt, just call the official helpline, and then the IT support staff, they may be able to send through a link on your email, or you may ask them about any things that you're seeing on their website which you find out of the ordinary, but that's should be your source of truth. So with that, we conclude our lecture. Thank you.